Hello, this is the first video in my ongoing series of Gateway games, and my first game is Galaxy Trucker. Now we're past the superb artwork. Galaxy Trucker is a personal favourite of mine as well. I'll just give a quick overview of what the game is. Basically, you'll be building a spaceship, a space truck, to transport yourself from one side of the galaxy to the other. And you'll be racing with the other players. So your ship needs to have speed, it needs to have cargo space, it needs to have room for crew, it needs to have lasers to blast asteroids and space pirates that'll attack you. And across the way, different events will happen as you journey along. So there might be open space, so you'll rush forward. There might be an asteroid storm, so your ship will be shattered to pieces. There might be a planet you can land on to grab some goods, and after a set number of cards, the journey finishes, and you count up all the goods you've got to sell, or the ships you salvaged along the way. But then you also have to pay for other parts of your ships that are broken, and that's the journey part. But to begin with, to make your ship, it's small tiles. So you'll have engines and lasers and cargo space, and they have to be put onto a net map on your player board. And single connectors can only go with single connectors, and doubles can only go with doubles, and things like that. So you can make the sort of ship that you want. So really, you've got two parts of the game. You've got the puzzle ship making part, which is great fun, and then the actual journey where you use that ship. It's a really fantastic game, but I also think it can work quite well as a gateway game. On my gateway pyramid, the bottom three things. First of all, playtime. It's not a short game. But the round structure means normally you will play 3 rounds with ever increasing ships and increasing danger in the encounters. Means that technically you could finish early. You could just do 1 or 2 rounds. You could go through the full 3 as the game recommends, and it still won't be a long game that will intimidate anyone. But if they really enjoy it, you can extend on to the 3A round, which is with a really unusual ship. Or just play again. It's long enough easily to get a good 2 sessions of the game in on a moderately length night. The timed element of the first half of every round, the shipbuilding, keeps the game time down, and the journey itself doesn't tend to involve too many decisions that would prompt a lot of thought. I mean, you will have to make decisions. Should I use this battery? Which planet should I stop on? But none of these are going to be decisions where you will win or lose the game based on that decision. It will be more an amalgamation of those decisions. So there is a decision-making process, but it's not, oh my goodness, where do I put my worker on this placement table of a dozen buildings each that does something different, and the second you put it down, you've doomed yourself by doing that. So playtime of this game is good. The theme, you've got the puzzle element in putting together the ship, which appeals. It's a neat touch. The space side might appeal to certain folk. I don't really think that it's not too much like any given space property. But the book, the rule book, oozes with theme, and this is one of the few games where I will pick up the book and actually read the introduction to new players that's in the book, because it really sets the tone, a funny, light tone that can continue into the game. The attitude that you don't need to take the game too seriously. The ship falls apart, so what? Doesn't matter. You're not losing any money. This was all just profit. So it really sets up the universe quite well. In terms of playing with both new players and veterans at the same time, the game has a ship swapping rule, where if you're playing with somebody who's played for the first time with someone who's more experienced, when you make your ship, you will swap boards. So if I've played the game several times and somebody hasn't, my probably far better designed and more complete within the time limit ship will be given to them, and I will take their pile of junk. This mechanically works very well. Some players might not want to hand over their ship. Some people like a pile of junk because it's their pile of junk, and that's fine. They'll learn through the mistakes. This game isn't going to punish you for your mistakes 3 hours later. It's going to punish you for your mistakes right now, and you'll get a few laughs out of it. The random nature of the game, dice are quite heavily involved in what events come up, can mitigate the advantage of experienced players while not completely robbing the game of competition. There's an option in the game normally where you can use some of your time to build the ship to look through the events that are going to come through in the game. And for experienced players, this is a vital strategy in making the game less luck-based, because you can see, there's going to be a lot of asteroids. I really need to build up my shields and my lasers. There's going to be a lot of planets, so I need to build up a huge cargo space. But don't worry about lasers. There's hardly going to be any need for them. If you take out that option with experienced players, they can't look at the cards, then suddenly the playing field is far more leveled, because new players might not even know what sorts of cards are coming up, really. And it just means that an experienced player has to plan for every eventuality, which means they can't dominate in one given strategy and not suffer the ill effects of doing that, probably. This way, also, it raises the challenge for veterans, because they have to play the game a bit differently, and that makes the experience more fun for them. And gateway games, as at the top of the pyramid, should be fun for both newbies and veterans. You don't want to play as a new player with a veteran who is rolling his eyes and fed up because he's having to play the baby version. The next level of the pyramid, we have accessibility and complexity. The accessibility of this game, it has quite few components that the players actually need to manage themselves, but the building the ship in the number of different pieces with different joins and different roles, and how many of these and how many of that, can be quite intimidating. The best way I found with this scale is the aforementioned swapping of the boards once the ships are completed, because that just means that, look, don't worry, just build your ship as best you can. You will have a ship to use, and that way they can get around the idea of building the ship and then experience the journey part, and then next round, use the ship that they build. In terms of how accessible the game is through comparable mediums, it's not really comparable to any mainstream game that I can think of, like a Monopoly or a Risk. And there's no video game that springs to mind particularly that's common enough to have been played. I'll mention Red Dwarf or Wacky Races or maybe even Firefly or the Millennium Falcon for the style of the junky sort of ship and the lighter tone, just to get an idea of the sense of the game. In terms of complexity, the overall rules are not too bad at all. The most confusing aspect overall is explaining what all the different tiles do. And I usually, when I teach the game, focus heavily on how the tiles go together. I mean, this is pictorial, so you're constantly reminded, and it's quite visually, well, that can't go with that because that's a double and that's a single. So it's not terribly complex, but under the pressure of time and the amount of pieces, it can be a bit much. I will go through what every tile does at the start of the game very simply, not say, well, if you have a laser, it can do this, it can from this angle. Don't bother with that. Lasers, shoot asteroids, stop pirates, get as many of them as you can. Batteries, power your double lasers, your double engines, your shields, get as many of them as you can. Cargo space, hold your cargo, get as many as you can. Basically, the joke in the book and the joke that I tell players is get as many as you can. In the first run through, it really doesn't matter. You're just making your ship, just have fun with it. And they'll learn as they go. The first round, the game suggests a set of cards that are used the first time, and this will cover every single type of card that can be encountered in the game. And so, it really does just need to be a case of, look, just get used to the mechanic. Also, it does recommend not using the timer initially, and I quite like that idea. Or if I use the timer, it will be turned over at least twice in the first round. I'll turn it over quite quick the first time, but then the second time, just leave it for a while until it's a bit more dramatic. The micro rules of the game, there aren't too many tiny if this and that and that and that then this rules, though the lasers can be a bit odd to calculate. If they're facing forward, they shoot straight. If they're facing on the side, they shoot up to the side and to the left. If you're adding up the lasers, there's 1 point or half a point or double if they're double. So I try not to worry too much about that. The win conditions are pretty simple. If you have any money, you win. If you have the most money, you are the most winner. Though there are quite a few avenues from which money can be earned, which could technically be quite intimidating, but at the same time this lets a new player, if they want to imagine their thing to be like a battleship, well, you can make your money blowing stuff out of the sky. If they want to make the racer, chuck a load of engines on there and you'll win money for racing quickly. If they're Mono make their ship immaculately perfect, they'll get a reward for the prettiest ship. So the fact that you can earn money from so many ways can be overwhelming, but at the same time it means that they're not going to fail just because they didn't put one aspect on their ship. And then the tippity top of the pyramid, the most important thing about any gateway game, and I would argue any game, is the fun aspect. And Galaxy Trucker is an extremely fun game. It can be brutal, and the best laid plans by the best Galaxy Trucker players in the galaxy can involve your ship splitting in two with the unfortunate roll of a dice or a card. There are space pirates, plagues, asteroids, sabotage, all sorts of sci-fi fun. The use of batteries to charge engines, lasers and shields at the right moment can make for some suitably Star Trek or power to front shields moments. And the timed element adds a frantic fun to the game. The race is part of the fun with greater rewards, good choices when you're in front. I've got into front so I can land on that planet. Ha ha ha, that's mine now. But by being in the front, you're the first target. There are any pirates, slavers and raiders. You can go from hero, I have all the money, I've got so many goods on my ship, to zero when that asteroid splits half your ship and it goes floating off into space. I find it's a great one for couples and close friends, because being able to laugh at another person's misfortune and then laugh at your own, that makes for a fun experience. Galaxy Trucker is a lot of fun. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily. It's odd to do it as my first video, but I'm trying to keep a continuity in the theme from video to video to video. I wouldn't actually recommend it perhaps as my very, very first gateway game for someone who's never played anything beyond Monopoly. But on the other hand, the components are attractive. The game has a good pace. It's very fun. I keep saying that, but that's because it is. So overall, I think you could do far worse than Galaxy Trucker. The most important thing is to keep it light. Okay, so that was Galaxy Trucker, a strong recommendation from me as a gateway game. The theme of Galaxy Trucker, the puzzle aspect, will be carried on in my next video, which is the gateway game Umbongo, the puzzle game. Okay, hope you enjoyed this, and hopefully I will see you for the next one.